Hello, my name is Martin Q. I'm with the Strategic Retreat, and so I wanted to react to this, but wanted to give it the proper time with the algorithm for etiquette purposes. So it's been 10 days since this was posted, and yeah, it's pretty blatantly like billionaires, pretty touchy subject for some people, but yeah, it's representation of wealth inequality. I've seen some of Casually Explained's videos, so didn't do reactions to those because I had already watched them, and I want to give the legitimate first time reaction to it. So I'd seen the video about like political compass, him mentioning like Hassan and all that. So there's awareness of the political spectrum and uh, online communities, large groups, and their shared ideologies. And of course, in the name of humor, a lot of it gets played up for the widest demographics possible, like poking a little fun at everybody and poking fun at every extremist in the political spectrum. Of course, the type of humor that you have, something like Bill Burr, a lot of stand-up comedians, where you eventually have to have some relatability with the average person and how they view things. You don't tend to side with the rich elite few because those are the minority. Those are the ones who are siphoning the wealth. It would be very odd for them to, for a comedian to lick the boot and actually try to defend them the entire time. But you would be surprised. There are a number of billionaire apologists. And so I try to preface this with that perspective and the amount of people online who take that viewpoint. And so I'm hoping that it's not that every single person is going to immediately radicalize and become like a far leftist, uh, which I believe I'm somewhere near there. It should be very obvious if anybody's checked out my stuff. Uh, but yeah, just questioning wealth inequality, the systemic means by which wealth and influence are used to bypass checks and balances, regulations that should be controlling how somebody accumulates this much wealth and how they use it at all. And the cost, all of the things that affect cost of living, the sort of things that we are concerned about. And so I'm going to try not to ramble too much, but I mean, this is what I mean. I think the subject of billionaires and how they get that wealth is inherently very political. And so let's see.
This video is brought to you by Incogni. Now, the difference between an average person and a billionaire is essentially zero. Unfortunately, about 9 of them. Nevertheless, if you're a regular person, you walk around the same streets as both the RIF, the RAF, and professionals all the same. You probably know people who still live at home, friends slumming it with roommates, couples sharing a 2-bedroom, and high earners with a single family home, a dog, 2 kids, and the white picket fence, giving you a decent perspective of life for the average person.
So yeah, this is good. Some relativity with the average person, and even trying to maintain some class consciousness by increasing the group inclusion up to those who own homes, which is an asset. And depending on where you live, some of the highest density in demand real estate means that there are some very expensive homes and your wealth will be tied up in there. And even then, for them to be a wealthier average person would still not have them in the highest percentage of wealthy hyper billionaires that control everything.
But when you're so rich that money basically doesn't matter, everything changes completely. One unavoidable characteristic of becoming a billionaire is that you end up in such an isolated social circle that you often cease to relate to the common person and your life becomes unrecognizable. For this reason, billionaires actually have more in common with the homeless than they do with most people. Doesn't pay taxes, undiagnosed mental illness, on the kind of drugs you don't even know how to get, and never even heard of the Epstein files. Now, it's natural to look at your life where you work 40 hours a week for just enough to scrape by and think, how does someone even get to be a billionaire in the first place? It's really pretty simple. At some point or another, we've all had the genius thought, What if a million people just gave me $1? It would barely inconvenience them, but then I would have $1 million. While most of us stop at this fantasy,
Right? So, yes, the uh, focusing on the rich, the hyper wealthy and influential as being out of touch with the amount of wealth and control and how they have. I mean, pretty much speaks for itself. Elon Musk, Trump pictured there, and then right. What was notable is the money from the many consolidated into the hands of a few, which is, well, I mean, yes, you could, that is wealth consolidation, but that's also essentially how taxes are supposed to work, except it's with a governing body instead of just an individual wanting to be a millionaire. That, yeah, when taxes are properly used, then it is a barely noticeable, relatively barely noticeable burden on the average person to create an amount of wealth from many to then be put towards good causes, things like social programs and good services and a properly functioning government and society. And yeah, if we could see the benefits of those if in the U.S. a ton of money didn't go towards like the military, the police, plenty of misappropriated funds, bailing out of billionaire businesses, all of that. There's plenty. I'm not about to do a full economic breakdown on all of taxes, but just to say that there are plenty of people who think that all taxes are theft and they are all bad when you live in a society that does not properly allocate the taxes and give a lot of it back to the average person. Then it gets used as red scare talk about like, and that's why socialism, communism bad, and that's why all group dynamics bad. So no taxes, and go full libertarian of like where about you get to keep all of your wealth, you get to use your money, but oh yeah, but how would anything function if everything was done on the individual level? But that's a whole other discussion.
impressed by our own raw ingenuity, some people throughout history have gone further, extrapolated on this scheme, and invented what is known today as a business.
Okay, so right. So yeah, that is the other side of just extracting a bunch of wealth from people. That depending on what you do with it, and how you get it, adding the context, that the whole subject of billionaires and businesses is, yeah, the criticisms of capitalism, endless profit, growing profits quarter after quarter, that uh, you would never be satisfied with that, or summarizing it as what rent-seeking behavior, because a lot of people, of course, see and hear the word rent, and we'll think of just housing, when rent-seeking behavior is really about adding a subscription to everything, an ongoing cost, whether on a week by week or month, quarter sort of basis. And the idea is essentially, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you just turn everything into an ongoing subscription model instead of a single product that you buy at one time and it's done and it's satisfying, it does the job. It's like, this is where you criticize like enshittification and planned obsolescence. You create a product that's just good enough that people will find it worth buying, and it won't break fast enough that they immediately complain about it. It breaks just slowly enough that people will see it as normal for the cost value that they paid for it, and they will buy it again and again and again and again and again, right? And you apply that to many different things, and that is planned obsolescence. You could have the one good product, it could be done, but why would you throw away multiple purchases, repeat customers over a lifetime? So, yeah, plenty about business practice there.
As an example, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph thought, what if you give me $16 every month and I mail you Shrek 2 on DVD? Easy 6.5 billion. Elon Musk said, what if you give me $8,000 and I pretend to give you a self-driving car every year for the next decade? Richest man on earth.
Okay, well, that was like a whole 10 seconds. Yes, so the enshittification subscription model, it directly calling out of live media services like Netflix or YouTube Premium. I don't know enough about each individual one, but the whole idea of cable services, old TV models where there are ads included, and then the newer model of, you just subscribe to our service and we provide a bunch of movies, TV shows with no ads, except that eventually breaks down and, oh, well, guess what, we just have multiple subscription tiers of various premiums and hyper premiums, and also you're going to get ads back anyways. And right, it just enshittifies once it captures enough of the market. And then, of course, not even getting into, Elon Musk, automation, the whole subject matter of automation, the productivity that we could legitimately gain, and the workers that get freed from that. To if the profits and productivity were not all pocketed by the same people who would then own the automation, the freeing of people to then pursue their creative hobbies, instead of it being the other way around, where a bunch of AI automation people want to make sure that AI is the one writing books, all the coming up with art and all of that, while the people slave away in menial labor. It's a way deeper, stupid conversation about uh, a good idealized society.
Mark Zuckerberg said, "What if I give you an app that collects all of your personal information in a giant database that I own, and you give me a heat lamp and a bowl of grasshoppers?" To really drive home how much wealth billionaires have, when someone says they're a billionaire, they're one of only 800 people in the United States. In contrast, if someone says they're a millionaire, it means they have a house. While politically it's commonplace for progressives to hate billionaires because they epitomize late-stage capitalism, I don't make fun.
Okay. I think that's an ad trying to run.
Make fun of billionaires because I have an ideological bone to pick. I make fun of them because they're really fucking weird.
All right, so here's where we get into a slight. Again, some of this I'm sure is played up for laughs, but some of it again can be an actual way to not step on anybody's toes and pick a side with ideology. Fine, whatever. If you don't, if they don't want to say it, you just pick. Uses a couple pictures of AOC, Bernie, again, depicted as like, oh, these are the far leftists, and they just fight over ideology. It's like, well, the politics and ideology are literally affecting our daily lives, right? Not even getting into, again, the United Healthcare situation where most people agreed. So you actually do have a good platform for picking a side instead of just like, who can I make fun of? Well, there's a lot of weirdos. Even though, again, I hate that it comes to this when you can't just have somebody influential, like casually explained, just be on the side of good before it's nice and safe to do so. Decades upon decades after the fighting has already ceased, whether we've won or lost the war against the hyper rich buying, everything in the checks and balances already. A lot of people will only take a side after it's safe. So sure, you can poke fun at a lot of them for being out of touch, but he even mentioned it himself earlier. It's that they are so rich and out of touch, they no longer act like a normal person, which is why you can poke fun at their appearance or their eccentric behaviors. All right, and even mentioning things like the Epstein list, the behaviors include things like being freaking pedophiles and all that, and other ways that they break the laws. Plenty of things that you don't need to be a conspiracy theorist thinking about, like crazy hidden cabals. It's like, no, a lot of it's pretty public too. Again, United Healthcare situation stuff. They control our lives. So it just feels weird to take a non-stance. But hey, he's got like 8 minutes left. I feel like it's just an odd fence to sit on.
Recently, Peter Thiel, a tech billionaire and right-wing ideas guy, appeared on a podcast and was asked if he thought the human race should survive. He then stammered over the question for 15 seconds before reluctantly answering with the classic, "Yes, but..." Now, I'm no expert.
Okay. So again, maybe it's got played up and it's just a weird statement. So yes, that would get into essentially like eco-fascism sort of stuff about like, oh well, actually the human race is the virus. It's like a cancer, and then they only want to spread and take all the resources. When again, that would be like that gets wrapped up in the like this is all human nature, and you need to account for that when uh, applying your ideology. And like, no, a lot of people are actually very cooperative and would not be naturally destroying their surroundings like that. It's simply that we have systems which allow a few greedy individuals to take greater and greater control, and they spread their influence and wealth to do what they want. Those few greedy individuals do not then represent the entire human race, and that's why we should get exterminated, right? You go full Thanos style of like, nope, there's only this many resources and we gotta snap half of people out of existence just to make it work. It's like, no, we already have the means to do good. They just don't want to do it.
In media training, but as I frequently tell Putin, Hamas, and Benjamin Netanyahu on our weekly Zoom meetings, the correct answer to human rights questions is always to say yes right away and only reveal later that you had your fingers crossed out of frame. Billionaires like Thiel are almost alarmingly out of touch with how to communicate with the general public because even though he can understand a regular person's life conceptually, he can't relate to them on a personal level. For example, I get really hot at night when I go to bed, so I like to turn the temperature way down, whereas Thiel prefers to sleep in a deep freezer he lays down like a sarcophagus. Now, the good news is that not all billionaires base their whole personality on World of Warcraft expansions and name their company after the magic rock Sauron used to corrupt weak minds and manipulate their will.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna get into it himself, but this is essentially what the whole Torment Nexus thing is about. Things like cyberpunk, plenty of pop culture, sci-fi dystopia warnings, predictions. How did they know? It's like a lot of people that are in touch with with the viewpoints of the issues of their time were already writing stories, things like The Simpsons, right? Criticizing it. So it's not that they predicted the future, it's simply that you have not made systemic change. So yeah, plenty of things get used. The meme is please don't create the Torment Nexus. New Tech Bro announces the creation of the Torment Nexus, and things like Squid Game. Like, don't actually make a Squid Game, this hyper competitive game that people are forced to play, but they get to choose. But you're basically threatening them with poverty, death, starvation on the street. So that is their choice. That is the extent of their choice being forced into it. And then, of course, Mr. Beast, a ton of people made more Squid Game sorts of things. Yeah, all criticisms of capitalism eventually get consumed by it.
Warren Buffett, for example, has not only pledged all of his wealth to charity after he dies, but he also still lives a very humble life in his house in Omaha that he bought in 1958 using the change he picked up off the ground. Nevertheless, most billionaires don't do much to shake off the public image that their whole existence is just about lording over their minimum wage warehouse workers as they Zillow the next 2,000 hectares of farmland to buy, sip their cognac, and mutter to their Siamese cat what pleasure it brings them to see the peasants toiling for their coin. But this isn't how billionaires run companies, this is how Mr. Beast comes up with video ideas. The ethical
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, so he's using some of the direct callouts there. Yeah, some of this, the whole like good billionaire thing. There's last week tonight videos with John Oliver on that about like I believe, or maybe it was the Daily Show or both. I'm sure anybody who's interested on the topic knows how to search for those. But yes, the charity, the kind of whitewashing of billionaires. Like, actually, it's okay because they use some of it for good things when it's okay, but the wealth consolidation that they've already done shouldn't have happened so that, or they pay it back in taxes so that you could already do those good things. The wealth would already be out there in society instead of consolidated onto this individual who then gets to decide whether they feel like using it for charity or not. Right? So the fact that they have that much money to just throw around to causes that they choose is kind of part of the problem. And whether or not Casually Explained meant to play that for laughs about like, oh, here's the example of the guy who lives a little bit more humbly than the other ones. It's a little weird.
Question of should there be billionaires at all is one of the most
Okay, well, I guess he'll get into that.
hot button issues around right now because wealth inequality has been steadily increasing decade over decade, and many people believe that billionaires don't pay their fair share. This is of course ridiculous, as billionaires get divorced all the time. With that said, it is a common belief that if the government were to confiscate everyone's personal wealth above $999 million, this would lead to a dramatic improvement in the standard of living for the average person. Problem is, even if you were to yoink every stock, bond, and square inch of real estate a billionaire owns, liquidate all of it to straight cash while somehow getting market value, in the US you would get about $6.22 trillion, which would cover 11 months of government spending, or every person in the country would get a one-time payment of around $18,000. While this is nothing to scoff at, if
Okay, so this is where we get into a math breakdown. And again, it's a bit reductionist, and I also see he's pulled up the stereotypical blue hair radical leftist again. So yeah, this is to say like you're probably about to get some billionaire apologists and like, oh well, you can't do anything anyways. I'm about to play it off for laughs. Like it'll still be funny, but the idea that underneath this laugh is a video that's about to explain why things have to be this status quo. And it's not literally about giving that money back, dividing it by the population of the people so that it looks like a laughably small amount to then just be the period of the sentence. Like, and that's why that's dumb. When again, this is much more complicated than that, and it also would involve things like again social programs, things that make way more money that or create more value than the amount that you would cause. Things like the postal service and right universal healthcare, where something where part of it is that it would just simply be better and cost less than the system that we currently have with private insurance acting as middlemen. There's like it's just way too complicated for a simple YouTube video. But yeah, the fact that that Casually Explained went there, it's kind of like essentially the anti-billionaire straw man. So let's see what he says now with the stereotype against the rich. This is what centrists do. They make everything else seem ridiculous so that, oh, well, nothing, can't do anything.
If you're one of the people who says we should eat the rich, it's important to consider that the average inheritance in the US is $46,000, meaning you would make more money if you ate just one of your parents. Now, because they can't yet buy more of it, billionaires are experts at managing their time.
So yeah, again, played up for laughs because he divided the money into the population instead of what you're actually supposed to do with eating the rich or defunding these things like the military, the police, and stuff like that. So because of straw man point number one, immediately gets to put it on the individual for straw man point number two. Eat the rich, huh? You're dumb. You should actually eat your parents' inheritance. Yeah, a lot of people aren't gonna get that anyways, and even then, that's like a whole other discussion about the boomers. Plenty of people of rich parents who are not going to pass along as much to their children, and simply are going to liquidate their assets for. I mean, I already seen it. Like my parents browsing nursing homes and stuff like that. I mean, that's where that money's gonna go. I have my day job. Even then, I'm still supported by my family. It could definitely be worse, but this is where, like, oh well, why are you expecting this YouTube video to have the most intelligent breakdown of, well, how do you solve wealth inequality and stuff? No, but a little bit more than, well, there's nothing to be done, right?
While flying private is out of reach for most of us, there are other tips you can copy from billionaires to save time in your own life. For example, when I make a new account on a website, I save time by letting Chrome auto-generate an encrypted password. I got this idea from Elon Musk, who uses the same technique to name his children. When you basically reach level 99 in capitalism, you might ask yourself, what do I do now? Not to worry, once you've reached the level cap, there's still plenty of side quests for you to do. While most regular people spend their time playing video games, doing arts and crafts, or playing a sport, billionaires can choose more exotic things like getting bullied on Twitter, criticizing the Chinese government exactly one time, paying pro athletes to make you feel talented, leaving the planet.
All right, well, we're getting into it. So, again, this is a little reductionist about what do you do when really a lot of what the average person does is escapism, watching YouTube videos, video games, things that actually make you feel a little better with the limited money that you have. Like, we're getting into like, actually it's avocado toast and that you should have been hustling and grinding even more. But not that he said that, but I always sometimes it feels like that's on the horizon. Yeah, again, the whole Chinese billionaires, you can't criticize. Again, we're hitting the opposite side of that now of like, oh, so you'd much rather have it where we worship the billionaires and they can't seem to do anything. Oh, the poor billionaires in China, stuff like, didn't he end up being fine anyways? So I mean, yeah, again, this is very centrist straw man of like, oh, and they're full on authoritarian communist, blah 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 blah. It's like a lot of those countries are capitalists. They just have any level of accountability, checks and balances functioning. But yeah, sure, they're the authoritarian bad ones, not like perfect Western governments, infallible. Does that sound even cultier?
Planet in search of any novelty that will make the emptiness go away, paying to boost your Path of Exile account, then streaming it to prove to anyone who doubted your multidisciplinary genius that they were in fact correct, exploring the bottom of the ocean to uncover its lost secrets, and of course exploring the bottom of the ocean and then dying instantly. In reality, when you're worth even hundreds of millions of dollars, an ultimately rookie amount, you can pretty much have anything you want. Penthouses, luxury cars, private chef, private plane, giant house, and another giant house in a poor country that kinda sucks but has good weather, and you're not sure if purchasing power parity means the gardeners are getting paid well by their standards, or if you just own slaves. With this in mind, if you are a billionaire, it's actually pretty hard to think of a way to flex on multi-millionaires, meaning the 23-year-olds on Raya who look like they're 35 aren't gonna message you back. That is of course until you remember what separates the centimillionaires from the billionaires. Big boat. Ask a girl if she'd rather be stuck in the middle of a forest with a random bear or a random man, and she picks the bear every time. Ask a girl if she'd rather be stuck in the middle of the ocean with a random shark or stuck in the middle of the ocean with a random Saudi man, and she picks Muhammad every time. This is because men in the forest are broke, meaning they'll try to touch your boob, whereas men on yachts are rich, meaning they have grown weary of material desires and flew you out business class for your quirky personality. While no one has tried to sex traffic me yet, the closest I've been able to get so far was when I was on a holiday in France several years ago and made a day trip to Monaco. Now for people not in the know, Monaco is a tiny sovereign nation basically inside France, and it's like a Vatican City tax haven for the ultra wealthy. They have a little garden you can look at near the Monte Carlo casino, which was the only thing I could afford. And as you walk through, you're like, oh, look, a little building. Hopefully this one's a bathroom. Nope, just another Audemars Piguet watch kiosk. Then you pee on it anyway because you're in Europe. Other than this neat oceanographic museum, what I thought was the coolest part of Monaco was the port, which was divided into sections based on how important people in Monaco thought you were. In the very inner part of the harbor, you have the literal wage slave section, which is basically all the yachts that I would see back home. Then there's Worthless, which had the biggest yachts I have ever seen in real life prior to this. After that, you have Starter Yacht, which are like floating New York City penthouses. Then the last section in the harbor is, finally, a real yacht, which is one giant pier for the 2 or 3 mega yachts that rule the Monaco postcard photo and cost at least $100 million each. Obviously you don't stop there because these things are a dime a dozen, so then you go out in the ocean and you get, what is this, a harbor for ants? Now you might be thinking what I was thinking at the time, which was, even if you were a billionaire, why on earth would you want a mega yacht so big you can't even park it in the harbor? Exactly, to store your other yachts in, brokey, get with the program. At this point, I too was wondering how I could acquire a Russian nesting yacht until I was like, speaking of, what's that? And maybe a few kilometers farther out from the shore was this thing, which is the world's largest sailing yacht and in the top 5 most expensive yachts ever built. It's owned by Andrei Melnichenko and designed by the guy who made this cool lemon squeezer that my mom just bought. Even though I had forgotten the oligarch class yacht existed, this guy claims he doesn't even have ties to the Russian state, making him just a regular unimportant billionaire. This
Okay. Well, so see, this is where I feel there's a little less substance, which is why I let that play for so long. But this is the problem when you just criticize the eccentricity of it instead of, the deeper ideology of like, well, no, what does somebody actually believe? Instead of just saying, weird, that was weird. They're a little awkward. They're out of touch. Like, yeah, we know because this. So until he just said, like, again, the oligarch word, it's like, Russia, 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 oligarch Russia. Again, I don't know the amount of people who are status quo or believe all of the Western propaganda up until this point of like, only Russia has oligarchs, and that is only because of them and socialism, communism, or whatever, again, Red Scare thing. It's like, the US has oligarchs too, or then this is where you start fighting over words, because then they'll say, actually, it's not an oligarchy, it's a plutocracy, or it's a kleptocracy, or they're actually all corporatists, and actually it's not because of capitalism, or another, we don't have real capitalism. If we had real capitalism, it'd be better, and that's why it's twisting themselves into mental knots, he's playing mental gymnastics, just so, yes, just so, again, the exact jokes about the status quo, and that's something that only happens for other countries, only for their other system, because again, Russia, socialist, communist labeling. Even if he doesn't say that after the fact, that's the whole point of oligarchy being used more and more here. People waking up when agreeing with various Bernie speeches and stuff. It's just that's how bad it's gotten, and it's still not enough for people to recognize like what rich people do. It eventually doesn't freaking matter what you call them, because over here it's just, oh no, that's called lobbying, it's not bribing, and they just happen to control all of our politicians and laws and stuff like that. It's, you can only play it up for laughs for so long, and it makes it a little hard for me to find some of the video funny because they're not addressing what they actually believe. I'm saying they as because it's like some of it's casually explained too. It's like you got to pick a side eventually. It's not just going to be what is the recent most funny thing, way that you can poke fun at a yacht or about some luxury resort. Yeah, we know it's reaching levels of South Park or The Onion. It's hard to make more jokes about it because reality is even stranger than fiction. So where can you exaggerate from at this point? They're just doing it.
argument, of course, didn't work on the Italian government after Russia invaded Ukraine, because they saw the yacht parked outside their shoreline and said, yoink. Which brings us to the true top of the hierarchy, which isn't who owns the biggest yacht, it's who owns the biggest ocean. And you know what that means. That's right, baby, the taxpayer wins again. Checkmate. Billionaires, me and the boys, have once again risen to the top. Now, if you're looking to... Oh, oops, wrong slide. If you're looking to avoid calls from the IRS or other scammers that manage to get your email or phone number from Zuckerberg's data to avoid... Now, if you're looking to... Oh, oops, wrong slide. If you're looking to avoid calls from the IRS or other scammers...
Again, okay. I mean, that's just... I don't know. And somebody's gonna have to explain it. Like, actually, you don't get it. It's just like, it's not that funny because unless you've already accepted the meme jokes about like, yeah, aircraft carrier, go show them why Americans don't have healthcare, sort of thing. It's like, I found it funny on that level, the taxpayers winning. Yeah, because certainly, if that were true, that's literally like this would be Communist Manifesto talk about like the average person, the proletariat, owning the means of production. Like, we actually own and control things by way of our taxes. Like, no. So yeah, and then of course the IRS again. There's very much a type of libertarian centrist person, centrist actually right winger person of like all taxes are theft. You don't want again there is data harvesting and a lot of the taxes are used for shitty things, but it's indicative of like where they take that thought on taxes and all that. But whatever. I almost got through the whole thing.
that manage to get your email or phone number from Zuckerberg's databank, you should try today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni is a service that contacts data brokers on your behalf to request the removal of your information from their products and services. This means it won't be able to be purchased or acquired by potential scammers, spammers, or crazy exes, even though you wish they would sometimes. This is something data brokers have to comply with, they just don't really want to, so to do it yourself manually would take dozens or hundreds of hours. All you have to do is sign up for an Incogni account, and right away it'll get to work, while giving you reports on what has been initiated, in progress, and completed. When you use it for the first time, you're going to think, how did it start so fast? I haven't even told it what my data is yet. But that's what you did when you signed up, suddenly causing you to realize why it makes sense that everyone in the world has your email and phone number now. If you'd like to give Incogni a try, you can use promo code CASUALLY at the link in the description to save 60% off an annual plan. Just make sure you leave a bowl of grasshoppers out for Mark, as he comes for you when you rest.
Okay, I mean, yeah, fine. I mean that is basically what I expected. So that's why I tried to predict it before the video really got going about like, yeah, a lot of this is not going to be deeper systemic analysis on like should they actually exist. He just kind of mentions, at least he mentions it, I guess, but he kind of just dances around the subject matter, beats around the bush a little bit, and then moves on with an easier surface level joke about, again, how eccentric or weird it is and not the deeper things attached to it. Fine. And yeah, I mean, it's always funny like to not get into discussions of capitalism and profit seeking versus oligarchs in other countries, the worst economic systems. It's like you're literally needing to take a sponsorship from things that you may or may not agree with more, and it's just because you need to make money to live too, instead of socialist communist things like guaranteed housing and all that. So plenty of YouTubers get sponsorship videos, and wonder about, again, there's plenty of drama and posts about like, do YouTubers do enough research before accepting a sponsorship, before finding out if this is a legitimate company and all that. It's like, because you only have a limited amount of time too, and again, most YouTubers are those who are lucky enough to maybe make enough money to do this more for a living instead of working a day job, and any escape from that is seen as preferential. I don't mean to pass too much judgment on it, because yeah, I'd like to escape my day job too. But that's capitalism. Which is why you should pick a side and criticize it. Like, yeah, maybe we'd be able to make freer decisions if we didn't have to worry about being homeless, being able to pay our bills, so that you don't just accept these things, endlessly have to sign up for more jobs and more businesses that end up selling off your info from all of the job applications, Indeed, right, a ton of job search websites where you get spam mails, and every single time I sign up for one of those, you get another fresh batch of spam phishing phone calls. You get a bunch more spam mails. I feel like every company that's posting a bunch of fake job openings just so you get a fresh new batch of people signing up, and you have to use your email, you have to include social security, phone number, all of these things, and then you wonder how companies get this info to keep on calling you. So it's like you have an entire system of this, and it's done for profit, to sell your data. It's not just Mark Zuckerberg. Whether or not you're even able to delete some of your old accounts like that, it's this is which is why, again, I prefer. I wish I was able to hang out more with like Hassan and stuff. There's at least people who are a little more honest about like, and he's not perfect either. I'm not perfect either. But I feel like there's a class of person who is at least able to speak more openly, criticizing power, criticizing the current systems and stuff, versus, oh, this is weird, and they just end up complaining about everything around capitalism and living in it, but they're just not able to pinpoint of like, yeah, a lot of your problems are because of this. And yeah, and this is why like it was sort of funny, but there was certainly not a lot of in-depth. I wasn't expecting it, but it's a little disappointing when it happens that way anyways. Not a lot of real criticisms on the systems that create billionaires or what it allows them to do. This has been 40 minutes. Some of this was rambling, but I feel like I did an okay job trying to transform and predict some of the statements that Casually Explained ended up making, and hopefully this helps you as well when you're noting the same patterns of like, oh yeah, this is how somebody who doesn't want to answer the question or really address what they believe in. This is how they, oh, we'll just all have fun and get along without actually picking a side or putting your foot down and saying, this is what I believe, right? You will see this in everyday life as well. I get that maybe I'm taking it a little too seriously, and I'm maybe playing it a bit much, playing it up a bit subconsciously. But this is essential. This is what you should be asking if you really want to connect with somebody, and again, what they believe. You can't just say like, "Ha, well that was fun. Thanks for watching my reaction videos, guys. Like, favorite, and subscribe." Right? Like, I'm not gonna do that. That's not who I am. Um, but yeah, I'm doing it now. So rambling. But I just wanted to address this video, and I still had some fun. Thanks for those who tolerate me all the way to the end here, and hopefully I shared some actually insightful, critical thinking, and all that, questioning systems of power a little bit more. Everybody, take care of yourself. It's a rough time for everybody.